After studying this module, you will be able to know what are the differences between various male and female bones and how these differences help in establishing identity of the bony remains. To introduce you the topic, I would say it would not be wrong to say that humans speak for their identity after death as well. A person struggles throughout his or her life to establish his or her identity, to stand out, to be unique. This phenomena goes on even after death. A forensic anthropologist can establish identity of a person after his or her death as well. It is the bone or the number of bones that helps lay down the preliminary identification of a person. Starting with the fact whether the bone belongs to a human being or not, if it is of human, whether the remains are of a female or male. In this, we will discuss about various features and shed light on the facts which differentiate the human male skeletal remains from the female. Within the last few years, forensic anthropologists with proficiency in the archaeological methods have played all the more important roles in the recovery of human remains. The examination of human remains by the forensic anthropologist focuses on three tasks mainly. Number one, identifying the victim or at least providing the biological profile, that is the age, sex, stature or individual features. Then number two is the reconstructing the post-mortem interval based on the condition of the remains and the recovery context. Number three, providing data regarding the death event, including evidence of trauma if occurring during the perimortem period. Then examining the human remains. The first and foremost question that arises while examining human remains is whether the remains belong to a human or non-human. Differentiating human from non-human animal bones and teeth is a crucial function. Most lay people can readily differentiate adult human from non-human skulls, but other elements are more difficult. The similar shapes of mammalian and avian long bones produce confusion among animals of similar adult size. The bear paws are notoriously similar to the human hands and feet, particularly when they have been skinned and the claws are removed. Bones and teeth of immature humans and other animals can be particularly ambiguous. A newborn human skull, for example, consists of many bony elements that have not yet fused and are not readily recognized by the non-specialist. The identification of remains begins at the scene of death. An opinion about remains can be given on various aspects like source, whether human or animal, whether they belong to one or more individuals, then what is the age, what is the sex, what is the stature of that skeletal remain, if we can comment upon the race, the identity, the special features, the cause of death as well as the time since death. In this particular chapter about the comparison of skeletal remains, we will see how to differentiate male and female. We see the general comparison of the skeleton. The males have got a more massive general size, whereas the female skeleton is smaller and slender. If we see the long bones, the ridges, depression and processes are more prominent in males, whereas they are less prominent in females. The bones of the arms and legs are 8% longer in males as compared to females. With this, the shaft of the bones, it will be more rough in case of males, whereas it will be smoother, thinner with relatively wider medullary cavity in case of females. If we see the articular surface, it will be larger in case of males, whereas it will be smaller in case of females. If you see the metacarpal bones, they are longer and broader in males, whereas they are shorter and narrower in females. If we just take the weight of the human skeleton, the males, the total weight is around 4.5 kilograms, whereas the female skeleton weighs roughly around 2.75 kilograms, that is less than 3 kgs. Now we see the comparison between the different bones, specific bones. Let's start with the top, that is the skull. That is the difference between the male and female skull. The general appearance is larger and longer in case of males, whereas female it will be smaller, lighter and having the thinner walls. If we see the cranial capacity of the cranium, the skull, it will be around 1500 to 1550 ml in case of males, whereas it is 1350 to 1400 ml in case of females. If we see the general architecture of the skull, it will be rugged, muscle ridges will be more marked, especially in the occipital and temporal areas in case of males, whereas it will be smooth architecture in case of females. We see the forehead, it will be steeper and less rounded in case of males, whereas it is vertical, round or full in case of females. If we see the glabella, it is more prominent in case of males, whereas it is small or maybe absent in case of females. We see the frontonasal junction, there is a distinct angulation at the frontonasal junction in case of males, whereas it is smoothly curved in case of females. If we see the orbits, it will be square, set lower on the face, relatively smaller rounded margins in case of males, whereas in case of females the orbits will be rounded, higher, relatively larger and having a sharper margins. If we see the supraorbital ridges, it will be prominent in case of males, whereas it will be absent or less prominent in case of females. If we see the cheekbones, they will be heavier and laterally arched in case of males, whereas they will be lighter and more compressed in case of females. If we see the zygomatic arch, it will be more prominent in case of males and it will be the less prominent in case of females. We see the nasal aperture, it will be higher and narrower with sharp margins in case of males, whereas it will be placed lower and broader in case of females. We see the external auditory meatus, the bony ridge along the upper border is prominent in case of males, whereas it is often absent in case of females. If you see the frontal eminence, it will be small in case of males, whereas it will be large in case of females. Parietal eminence, again it will be small in case of males, whereas it will be large in case of females. If we see the frontal sinuses, they will be much developed in case of males and it will be less developed in case of females. At the occipital area, the muscle lines and the external occipital protuberance is much prominent in case of males and it is not at all prominent in case of females. We see the mastoid process, it is medium to large, round and blunt in case of males, whereas it is small to medium, smooth and pointed in case of females. If we see the base of the skull, the sides of the muscular insertions are more marked in case of males, whereas they are less marked in case of females. See the digastric groove, it will be more deep or deeper in case of males and shallower in case of females. The condylar facets, they are long and slender in case of males, whereas they will be short and broad in case of females. If we see the occipital condyles, they will be large in case of males and small in case of females. The palate will be larger, broader and tends more to be a U shape in case of male, whereas it will be smaller, tends more to be a parabolic shape in case of female. Various foramina are larger in the male skull as compared to female skull, where it is smaller. The foramen magnum is relatively large and long in case of males, whereas in females it is small and round. Teeth also, they are larger in males and smaller in females. Now let us see the difference between a male and female mandible. General size, again it is larger and thicker in case of male, smaller and thinner in female. We see the chin, it will be square shape in case of males, whereas it will be rounded in females. The body height at symphysis is greater in males, whereas it is smaller in females. The ascending ramus has got a greater breadth in case of males, whereas smaller breadth in case of females. The angle of body and ramus, that will be less obtuse, that means less than 125 degrees prominent and everted, that will be characteristic of male, whereas it will be more obtuse and non-prominent in case of females. The condyles are larger in males and smaller in females. The mental tubercle is larger and prominent in males mandibles in comparison to female mandible, whereas it is insignificant. Now let us see the difference between a male and female pelvis. Again, bony framework, if we see, it's a massive, rougher, marked, muscle sides stand higher and more erect. That is the characteristic of male. Whereas in females, it will be less massive, slender and smoother. General shape of the pelvis, it will be a deep funnel shaped in male, whereas it will be flat bowl shaped in female. The ilium, it is less vertical. Curve of the iliac crest reaches higher level and is more prominent in males, whereas it is more vertical. Distance between iliac crest is less, iliac fossa is shallow, and the curves of the crest are well marked in case of females. The pre-auricular sulcus, that is the attachment of the anterior sacroiliac ligament, that is not present in case of males. Even if it is present, it will be very narrow and shallow, whereas in case of females it will be more frequent, broad and still deep in case of multiparous female. Acetabulum is large and having a diameter of 52 millimeters and directed laterally in case of males, whereas it is small having a diameter of 46 millimeters and directed anterolaterally in case of females. The obturator foramen is large, often oval with base upwards in case of males, and it is small, triangular with apex forwards in case of females. The greater sciatic notch is smaller, narrower and deeper in case of males, whereas it is larger, wider and shallower in case of females. If you see the iliopectineal line, it is well marked and rough in males, whereas it is rounded and smooth in females. We see the ischial tuberosity, it is inverted in males, whereas it is everted or more widely separated in case of females. The body of pubis is narrow and triangular in males, whereas it is broad, square and pits on the posterior surface if the lady has begetted children, if the children has been born, or multipara female. Ramus of pubis, it is like continuation of the body of pubis, that is a feature of male pelvis, whereas in females it will be having a constricted or narrow appearance and is short and thick. If we see the ischiopubic rami, it will be more everted in males, whereas less everted in females. The symphysis is high placed in case of males, whereas it is low and distance between two pubic tubercles is greater in case of females. The distal border is irregular and shows depression or pits due to scars of parturition, that is the characteristic of female. We see the subpubic angle, that is V-shaped or sharp angle of 70 to 75 degrees, that is a feature of male pelvis. Whereas female, it will be the subpubic angle will be the U-shaped, rounded, broader angle 90 degrees or more. We see the pelvic brim or inlet, it is heart-shaped in case of males, whereas it is circular or elliptical or more spacious, having a longer diameter in females. The pelvic cavity, if we examine, it is conical and funnel-shaped in males, whereas it is broad and rounded in females. The pelvic outlet is smaller in males, where it is larger in females. The sacroiliac articulation, that is large and extend up to 2.5 to 3 vertebra in case of males, whereas in female pelvis it will be small, oblique and extend only up to 2 to 2.5 vertebra. The sacroiliac joint surface, it is large and less sharply angulated in case of males, whereas it is L-shaped and elevated anteriorly in case of females. We examine the sacrum, it is longer, narrower with more evenly distributed curvatures, prominent sacral promontory, as well as the body of the first sacral vertebra is larger. In case of female sacrum, it will be shorter, wider, upper half is almost straight and then curve forward in the lower half. Sacral promontory is very less marked and the body of first sacral vertebra is small. The coccyx is less movable in case of males, whereas it is more movable in case of females. The ischiopubic index is between 73 to 94 in case of males, where it is between 91 to 115 in case of females. We can say definitely if the ischiopubic index is less than 90, it favors male, and if it is more than 95, it favors female. The sciatic knot index is 4 to 5 in case of males, whereas 5 to 6 in case of females. Now let's see the difference between the male and female thorax. The sternum, the body longer and more than twice the length of the manubrium. The upper margin is in the level with the lower part of the body of second thoracic vertebra. Breadth is more, length is more than 149 millimeters. These are the features of male sternum. Whereas in female sternum, they will be shorter and less than twice than the length of the manubrium. The upper margin in level with lower part of the body of third thoracic vertebra. In males it was second thoracic vertebra. Breadth is less and the length is less than 149 millimeter. The ribs are thicker, lesser curvature and less oblique in males, whereas they are thinner, having greater curvature and more oblique in females. The clavicles are longer, broader, heavier and less curved in males, whereas they will be smaller, narrow, lighter and more curved in females. We see the vertebral column of male and female. The breadth of the atlas is between 7.4 to 9.9 centimeters in case of males, whereas in females the breadth of the atlas is 6.5 to 7.6 centimeters. Length of the vertebral column in males is 73 centimeters, whereas in females it is around 60 centimeters. The corporobasal index of the sacrum is 45 in case of males, whereas it is 40.5 in case of females. Then let's see the difference between male and female femur. Again, the head of the male femur is larger and forms about 2/3 of a sphere. The vertical diameter is more than 47 millimeters. The head of the female femur will be smaller and forms less than 2/3 of a sphere, and the vertical diameter is less than 45 millimeters. The neck has obtuse angle with the shaft about 125 degrees in male, whereas in femur it will be less obtuse angle with the shaft. The bicondylar width is 74 to 89 millimeters in the male femur, whereas it is 67 to 76 millimeter in female femur. The angulation of shaft with condyles is around 80 degrees in case of male, whereas it is around 76 degrees in case of females. We see the male and female scapula. The height is more than 157 millimeters of a male scapula, whereas in females it is less than 144 millimeters. The glenoid cavity, the height is greater in case of male scapula as compared to female, which has got a lesser height. We see the medullary index of the bones. The sex of the long bones can be determined on the basis of their medullary index, that is the diameter of medulla divided by diameter of whole bone into 100 from tibia, humerus, ulna and radius. According to Krogman, the degree of accuracy in sexing adult skeletal remains is, if we have got the entire skeleton, we are almost 100% sure. But if you have got parts, only bony parts, then it is the pelvis which has got the maximum importance, and with the help of pelvis we can determine the sex of the person with a certainty up to 95%. If only skull is there, 90%. Pelvis plus skull, the accuracy is around 98%, and with the help of only long bones, the accuracy is only 80%. Then let's see how we determine race by comparison of skeletal remains. It is also possible to determine race by the examination of skull, mandible, teeth and relative measurement of the limb bones. Certain differences exist between the three basic races, that is the Negroid, Caucasoid and Mongoloid skulls. They can be determined by the cephalic index and other indices like breadth index, the height index and the nasal index. The cephalic index is obtained by multiplying the maximum transverse breadth by 100 and dividing it by the maximum anteroposterior length. The breadth is the greatest diameter across the skull above the mastoid process. The length is measured between the glabella and the external occipital protuberance. The measurement should be done by calipers and not by measuring tape. And accordingly, a skull is a dolichocephalic or long-headed when the index is between 70 and 74.9. It is mesocephalic or medium-headed when the cephalic index is between 75 and 79.9, and it is brachycephalic or round-headed when the index is 80 or above. The skull of Aryans, Aborigines and blacks is dolichocephalic. Of course, the skull of the Indians, that borders around the, you can say, the dolichocephalic and the mesocephalic. Whereas that of Europeans and Chinese, it is mesocephalic, and that of the Mongols are the brachycephalic. The cheekbones or the zygomatic arches which determine face width are especially prominent in Mongols. In these persons, unlike other groups, the face width generally exceeds the head width. If we see the traits among the different races of the skull, the orbits are square in blacks, or we can say the negroid. They are triangular in Europeans or the Caucasoids, and they are rounded in Mongoloids. If we see the nasal openings, they are broad in negroids, they narrow and elongated in Caucasoids or the Europeans, and they are rounded in Mongoloids. If we see the palate, it is rectangular in the negroids, triangular in the Caucasoids, and it is rounded or horseshoe shaped in case of Mongoloids. To summarize the topic, human skeleton is both exo as well as endoskeleton. Recognizable sex differences do not appear until after puberty except in the pelvis, and the accuracy from this bone is about 75 to 80% or even more. The determination of sex is based mainly upon the appearance of the pelvis, skull, sternum and the long bones. In the skull, sexual feature is modified by the senility, that is with the aging process. In the pelvis, sex features are independent of each other and one may even contradict the other in the same pelvis. The male pelvis stands higher and more erect than the female pelvis, and additional information may be obtained from the scapula and metacarpal bones. In females, subpubic angle, greater sciatic notch, pelvic inlet and outlet are more than in male, but obturator foramen is smaller and curve of ilium is less. The sternal index, the ischopubic index and the sciatic notch index are more in females. The greater sciatic notch is the ideal feature to determine the sex of a female child.